I'm a little bit nervous today because I've just launched my new brand and it just happened to coincide with speaking today on stress. And my new brand is on building resilience. So if you've heard me speak before, you'll see that some of the branding is a little bit different. Some of the material today is going to be a little bit different as well. So I would really appreciate your support in getting the word out there. And yeah, any questions, if there is anything pressing, please stop me. We are going to have questions at the end. I am going to be here until the end as well. So please don't hold back on asking me anything. So just a little bit about me. Functional medicine practitioner. I've done my master's in personalized nutrition. I've done research in the field of chronic fatigue syndrome, which has led me to specialize in chronic fatigue. And I'm the founder of Taylor Well. So I basically used to be based in Barclays Bank, UBS, where I used to work with very highly stressed individuals. And then working in complex illness like chronic fatigue syndrome, I saw the flip side of that. So being highly stressed, leading to burnout, if it's not viral related. Okay, is anyone familiar with chronic fatigue syndrome, ME? Yeah, quite a life-consuming condition, really debilitating, signed off work kind of thing. So basically what I've done is I've taken a lot of that knowledge, a lot of that work that I've done to build Taylor Well so it can really help build individuals' resilience. But it's not just about mindset. It's been more than that. It's more about building physical resilience. So I'm going to take you on that journey today. So what we're going to cover, we're going to talk about the nervous system and how it influences overall health. We're going to talk about resilience and the connection to health and longevity. We're going to talk about circadian rhythms. And my favorite topic, we're going to talk about the gut-brain connection. And we're going to do some practical techniques on how to stimulate the vagus nerve. But I'm going to explain to you what the vagus nerve is, really take you on that journey as well. So when we think of the nervous system, it's like a network of nerves. Okay, we've got the central nervous system and we've got the peripheral nervous system. So the central nervous system is brain and spine. Peripheral is the rest of the body. Okay, it's responsible for controlling and coordinating our body functions. And then it's a crucial role in maintaining the homeostasis, so overall health. So when you're thinking of the vagus nerve, I want you to think of all the wires that come out of the back of your Wi-Fi box. It sends messages to different, I don't know where it goes really, but you've got all the wires and it's sending a signal. That is our nervous system. Full of all these different signals to instruct different things in the body. So it regulates our involuntary movement, which is heart rate, digestion, but also our voluntary movement like walking, talking, our sensory perception, sound, touch, sight, but also thought, emotion, behavior. It also helps to maintain balance and coordination. So that's pretty much everything. So our nervous system is very important when it comes to our health. Now, I've done a lot of research into centenarians, so basically people who live till 100. And I wanted to understand, okay, why are these living to 100? What are they doing any different? And the main thing in the research is saying that their rate of such process to slow down aging is their increased intrinsic capacity to respond to minor stresses of daily life. So resilient. They're more resilient, they can bounce back, they can cope with many different things they're faced with, and it slows down the aging process. So when we think of resilience, resilience means recovering quickly from challenges. So like stress, tough times, illness, uncertainty. And the major reason why some people live till 100 is their ability to bounce back. That was consistent across the research, especially when you look in the longevity space. Everyone is trying to, take the next best supplement. Take this, it's going to add, years onto your life, when really we're missing the fundamental part. How resilient are you to bounce back? Now, don't get afraid of this graph. I'm going to explain it. Has anyone heard of hormesis before? No? Okay. Have you ever heard that saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger? Yeah? That's hormesis. Okay? So it's a kind of scientific way of saying that, basically. So all I want you to understand from this graph is hormesis, see this end region here, the hormetic region. We basically want to be doing enough things that challenge us, but don't challenge us too much that we're coming out here into the red, into the oxidative stress. So think of exercise. You go to the gym, you want to build muscle, you want to improve your cardio, you want to improve your fitness. You're pushing yourself enough that's within your capacity to get the benefits from the exercise, but you don't just wake up tomorrow and haven't run a marathon before and say you're going to do a marathon. Okay? That's going too much up here into the oxidative stress. Now, I work a lot with athletes, but athletes after they've done whatever they're training for or what they're trying to achieve, because they've gotten to a point where they were too much here in the red, and it's led to cell damage, aging, and disorders. And unfortunately, it's the ones that have led to chronic fatigue syndrome, because their resilience and their capacity, it has impacted other parts of their health. Okay? So, like me, I love talking, I love doing events. Different events are going to challenge me differently. So I'm getting challenged enough to stay in the hormetic region, but I'm not going out and talking in a stadium, which will put me up here and probably cause a lot of stress. Okay? So does that make sense? You want to do enough that is going to challenge you, but not too much that you're pushing yourself into the red, because that's when it can activate stress response too much. Now, our stress response is good, and this is why I'm saying you want to get enough, but you don't want to be too much. So I'm going to give you a scenario, okay? You've got A and B. So person A has got excessive caloric intake, sedentary lifestyle, lack of cognitive stimulation, and lives in a sterile environment. When person B has got limited caloric intake, athletic lifestyle, intellectually challenged, and ongoing environmental microbe exposure. Who do you think is within healthy hormesis? So remember, enough to challenge you, but not enough to go into the red. Who thinks healthy hormesis is A? Who thinks it's B? Well done, you're listening, Marius. Well done, very, very proud. So basically, person B, they're training, okay? So they're getting out, they're challenging themselves, they're intellectually challenging themselves as well, doing cognitive stimulation, and they've got environmental microbe exposure. So they're getting out in nature, they're building up their microbiome, okay? So that's good hormesis. But this person up here, Marius, is probably the person sitting in front of Netflix, not getting outside, and they're not stimulating themselves enough. So unfortunately, they're putting themselves into the red, okay? Whereas person B is becoming more resilient, okay? So what happens? So I'm going to get into the mechanism a little bit here. So when you're feeling stress, either physical or mental, your body reacts in a specific way. So there's a part in the brain that will send a signal to our adrenal glands that just sit on top of our kidneys, okay? Now these glands, the outer part, cause the release of cortisol, which is that wear and tear, sympathetic nervous system, and then DHEA, which is heal and repair, parasympathetic nervous system. And then the inner part of the adrenal glands get activated by nerve cells, and they release adrenaline, noradrenaline, and dopamine. Very important in the stress response, okay? If this didn't happen, us humans, we wouldn't have survived, okay? This is what keeps us going in a high stress state. Now, when I worked with some of those individuals, let's say in those big financial institutes, I'd say, how you're coping? They're like, yeah, I'm coping really well. I'm like, how many hours are you working? Yeah, about 12 hours a day. I'm like, how many coffees did you have? Yeah, probably about 6. I'm like, okay, this is your adrenaline keeping you going. So you think like you're mentally coping, but your adrenaline will keep you going. And then they'll go on a holiday and what'll happen? They'll get sick, okay? Because their adrenaline drops, their immune system kicks in, and they'll get an illness. So when you're experiencing the stress response for short periods of time, again, remember homeostasis, this is helpful. But as it prepares your body to deal with immediate threats, you're building up that muscle. But when you're under stress for a long time and it keeps triggering that stress response, you keep going into that sympathetic nervous system, this is when it can lead to health problems. This is when it can lead to the chronic fatigue, loss of brain function, thyroid dysfunction, and what I see a lot is fertility challenges. So what we need to do is we need to keep coming back to this sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. Because if anyone's heard me talk before, you've heard me say this, but as women, our brain is constantly surveying our environment to see if it's safe to bring in a baby, okay? So we need to keep supporting that parasympathetic nervous response, that calm state, so that we let our brain know we're safe, effectively, okay? And the same goes for men. It's the same thing. There's just not enough attention put on it, in my opinion. So back to the resilience of successful aging. Now, when I say aging, I'm not just talking about, because everyone is going out, trying to look younger, get the Botox, get all of the different skincare, skin products. But really, fundamentally, it's coming down to this. It's coming down to our nervous system. It's coming down to our mitochondrial health. Now, if you've heard of mitochondria for the first time, it's basically how we produce energy, but it controls so much of our system. If you see someone and their skin is aging really, really quickly, that's poor mitochondrial function. So, and this is how the nervous system and the stress response impact. That was a little bit of a, side note. But when I'm talking about aging, it's really coming back to building resilience, supporting that nervous system. Now, when we're looking at resilience, it's not just a mindset thing. It really is a biological advantage that supports a healthier life. So this slide can look a little bit overwhelming when you look at it for the first time. Don't get scared from it, because I'm going to talk about each of these. So this is what I take my clients on a journey, and this is what I want you to understand, the difference between mindset and kind of just, we're familiar of psychological resilience. But when we're looking at physical resilience, there are so many different areas. Now, when I read these out, you might associate more with one or the other. And if you do, just take a little mental note about that and ask me a question. We can dive into it a little bit further, because I could do a whole workshop just on this slide, okay? So pathogen resilience is basically your ability to be able to fight off infections effectively, okay? Your immune resilience is your ability to keep your body's defense system strong. Microbiome resilience, so basically immune resilience, imagine you've all of a sudden moved into a flat that has a lot of mold and you're getting reoccurrent sinusitis, rhinitis, chest infections. You can't cope with living in the mold environment. That can be a loss of immune resilience, okay? We should be able to deal with these things, but I want you to think of this almost like your bucket, your stress bucket. When it gets really full, that's when you lose resilience in some of these areas, okay? Microbiome resilience, say you took an antibiotic and your gut hasn't been the same since. That's a loss of microbiome resilience. Or you went through something significantly stressful and your gut hasn't been the same since. That can be a loss of your microbiome being able to regulate again. Like, I've worked with clients and I've done stool tests on them, and I've looked, and their microbiome is completely deficient. No matter what I do in terms of pulling out some of the big guns, like really good probiotics, prebiotics, doesn't touch it. because they have lost their microbiome resilience. And it actually comes back to me working on their nervous system, more specifically their vagus nerve. Okay, now I'm going to go into that in a moment. But stress responsibility is your body to be able to keep stable under pressure. So the thing with centenarians is they get exposed to a stressful event and they're just like, right, okay, I can deal with it, get on with it, and then they can process it and work through it. But do you ever work with, you might see this in work maybe, you work with something and the company goes through a change and there's a certain amount of people that it's the end of the world. That's it, their life is over, they're constantly complaining about it, they can't get on board, they end up leaving and moving to the next job. That gives you a sign that it's like they're not resilient enough, they can't navigate through change or kind of cope with some of those stressors. Psychological resilience, so the ability to be able to maintain emotionally balanced and connected with others. Now that in itself there's so much in that. I'm not a psychologist. My best friend is a psychologist and she works with complex cases. You can imagine the conversations we both have when it comes down to some, working through different things. So that you could be going through a significant trauma, there could be early childhood traumas, a lot more to kind of unpack there. That is, again, she could do a whole presentation on that. Cognitive resiliency, so the ability to be able to think clearly and stay focused for long periods of time. Thermal resilience, ability to be able to handle cold or hot temperatures. So that one is what the big fad is, the hot cold therapy, ice plunges, cold showers. Cold plunges are not we went to one at the weekend. I could do the sauna and I could do a cold shower afterwards, but not get into the cold plunge. But then my uncle, he would go and he would swim. It could be 2 degrees, 1 degree. He would still get in. And it helps him so much. He loves it. So it's your ability to be able to handle that cold and hot. But let's say you've got thyroid issues. Your thyroid will cause a loss of resiliency in that and being able to regulate hot, cold temperatures. So it could be that we need to work on your thyroid, get that into a good place, and then your ability to be able to cope with that. Now, I don't have a thyroid issue. I just do not like the cold. And that's okay. If you don't like the cold, you don't have to push yourself through it, because the thing is, if you're pushing yourself to do something just because someone on Instagram told you to do it and you don't like it, that's counterproductive to what the benefit of that task is actually meant to do. Is there anyone else that feels incredibly overwhelmed by the amount of information that gets pushed at you on Instagram? Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you saw that reel where a guy came out and he just spoke and he was like, I've got to get up, I've got to have a cold shower, I've got to drink my functional coffee, I've got to do this, and I've got to say 10-minute meditation, I've got to do my gratitude journaling, there are so many things to do, and it can be incredibly overwhelming, and it can be counterproductive because you're feeling like you have to and you're just putting yourself through it. But find the thing that works for you. Don't feel like you have to do those big long list of things, because it is counterproductive then if you're stressed doing it. Okay. So toxicology, so your ability to break down toxins, clear out toxins. Your dietary resilience, so your ability to be able to tolerate dietary proteins. Inflammatory resilience, your ability to be able to respond to inflammatory triggers. And then physical is your ability to recover from exercise or physical exertion. Blood sugar resiliency. I see this so often, nearly majority of my clients. So your ability to be able to stabilize blood sugars after a meal. So if you're getting tired after a meal, that means you've lost your resiliency to regulate your blood sugars. Your food is meant to give you energy. It's not meant to make you tired. Okay? Do you ever get that you have your lunch and then you're just wiped after it? You can almost go for a nap. Yeah, that's your ability to stabilize your blood sugars. Okay, so you got to look at your protein, your fats, and your carbohydrates and how you're structuring your meals. Sleep resiliency, be able to function on limited sleep. So, sleep is very important, but if you don't get your 6, 7, 8 hours, you should still be able to function the next day. If you're waking up after 8 or 9 hours sleep and still tired and not being able to function, then there's some sleep resiliency that needs to be worked on. So does that make sense? That just gives you an idea into all the different areas, that it's not just mindset or we're familiar of psychological resilience. There's so much more, and you might have identified with some of those areas, and then just let that be a thought and like, okay, then what is it in that I need to unpack to work on? And it might not be all of them, might just be one of them, but food for thought. So I'm going to give you another scenario. We've got person A, person B, and we're looking at the expression of resilience. So you've got a 45-year-old who exercises or moves every day, learning new languages, loves traveling, loves trying new foods, sleeps for 6 hours a night and feels recovered in the morning. Then you've got a 45-year-old unable to recover from exercise, brain fatigue, severe depression, anxiety with social events, cannot function with less than 8 hours of sleep. Who do you think is more resilient, person A or person B? So you can see here now, if person A and B both had, let's say, leaky gut, person A is going to respond a lot quicker than person B, because we're working on different areas here that we need to support. It's not just, let's say, their gut is the issue, okay? We need to get to the root cause of what is driving their symptoms so that we can unpack and really give that personalized approach when it comes to that individual. Because so many times with my clients, they come to me to see me and they're on these big long lists of supplements. I'm like, why are you on these? They're like, oh, I heard that this is good, I heard that this is good. I'm like, how do you feel? No different. Like, so why are you spending 60, 70 pounds a month on supplements? You feel no different. Oh, I'm just hoping for the best. Okay? If you're not responding, if they're not working, then maybe you shouldn't be taking them. Okay? So I brought Alex here from Regenerist. I don't know where, there he is down the back, who I highly recommend speaking to, because if you've heard me talk before, you've heard me talk about the Dutch test. I run this a lot with my clients because it's really informative on helping me understand an individual's resilience, okay, when it comes down to their hormones, it comes down to the oxidative stress. So if you remember that red section in the hormesis, the oxidative stress, that's when your body, you're in that stress response wrong, your cells get damaged, and this is what leads to the disease. But in the Dutch test, we can actually look at that in someone's urine. We can see, is there levels of oxidative stress? We can look at their stress hormones. We can look at some of their sex hormones and their melatonin. So seeing how they sleep. So we're getting an idea of stress resilience, sleep resilience, immune resilience, inflammation. We're getting a lot of indicators into an individual's response of what one of my clients' test results was. So you can see it just gives an example of, so stress hits the hypothalamus, or the hypothalamus signals stress response to the adrenal glands, and we're looking at cortisol and we're looking at DHEA. But down here, more importantly, I'm looking at their circadian rhythm. So our circadian rhythm is we wake in the morning, and cortisol, our stress hormone, is what gets us out of bed. It's what wakes us. It's so important. But then cortisol is meant to drop and be the lowest at night. So it's meant to decline throughout the day. And then melatonin peaks, and then that's how we sleep. Okay? You can't have cortisol and melatonin at the same time because you'll really struggle with sleep. Okay? So I think of it like melatonin is like the moon, and then cortisol is like the sun. Okay? But if you see with this client, now this is a client who's chronic fatigued. Can you see her cortisol there, these blue points down in the bottom? She is barely mounting a cortisol response in the morning. She is completely sluggish. She can barely get out of bed. And then she can just about function throughout the day, okay? We need cortisol to help us function. But what's happened is her cortisol, she had too much output for so long that it then flattened, okay? It's kind of like she was pressing on the accelerator, but with the handbrake up. And what'll happen? Your engine will conk after a while, okay? So what we're doing is we're trying to rebuild the cortisol. She's working with a psychologist, she's working with myself, and we're helping to build her resilience. Now, I haven't gone in with supplements. I've focused on her diet, but I've been doing so much work on her nervous system with a lot of free techniques, okay, that I'm going to take you through today. But we need to get her back into that parasympathetic response, because if she's in that just flatline sympathetic, she's anxiety just constantly, then she's not going to respond much to supplements or different therapies, okay? So we need to kind of work on the vagus nerve. It's very important. So this is another one of my clients. This is one of my high performers where I looked at his biological age. Now, he's built a really successful tech company, high stress, as you can imagine. He was only 34 years of age, and he's worried about his health. He's, struggling with brain fog, struggling with gut issues, struggling to get out of bed in the morning, can't really show up for his company as well as he could. So we started off with, okay, let me look at your epigenetics. Let me look at your biological age. Let me see how healthy some of your organs are at the moment. His age was 45 on the test, and he's 34. So that was a bit of a wake-up call. And then we looked at each of these individual systems. We were so surprised his lung health was the age of a 28-year-old. We couldn't understand that. But if you look at the other side here, I'm not sure if you can all see, but his metabolic age was 39, his musculoskeletal 38, his inflammation age was 39, and you can see here the only one that was his current age was his liver, okay, which was actually quite surprising, because I would have expected that to have been the worst one. But it gave us so much information. Then we went and looked into his oxidative stress through the roof. Then I looked at, he actually had an immune response to the proteins in gliadin, which is in wheat. So then his digestive resilience was low. So we had to do a lot of work in building his immune system again, removing the triggers and helping to support his epigenetics, so his genetic response, so that it would improve his overall health. Does that make sense? Yeah. So this is why I brought Alex here, because I use that lab so much to do these particular tests on my clients. They're so interesting. I would highly recommend chatting with him afterwards. So now we're going to get into the fun part, okay? There is still some science coming, but we're going to go through the gut-brain connection. So go back to your Wi-Fi box, all the cables coming out the back. Now we're just going to focus on one of those cables, which is the vagus nerve, okay? Now this is the longest, the most complex cranial nerve connecting the brain to major organs. It helps with regulating digestion, heart rate, immune function, and inflammation. So a well-functioning vagus nerve supports healing, detoxification, and stress response. Now, the vagus nerve is the parasympathetic nervous system, okay? So the parasympathetic nervous system is the calming state, okay? It's the rest and digest, it's the heal and repair, it's the detoxify. Your vagus nerve and the parasympathetic nervous system cannot be on at the same time as your sympathetic nervous system, okay, which is the fight or flight, the high stress, okay? So when you think of the sympathetic, I want you to think of pressing on the gas of a car, okay, pressing on the accelerator. So then when the stress response settles, then our parasympathetic is the brake, okay? It comes in to reset almost. So the key component of the parasympathetic nervous system is this vagus nerve. So I just want you to almost visualize these almost cables or wires, as you can imagine, coming from the back of the brain and running down the different parts of our digestive system. Now, when let's say we chew our food and enough saliva goes into our food and we swallow, okay, that swallow will activate the vagus nerve to send a pulse then to our stomach, and our stomach will release acid. And the acid will be the first line of breaking down things like proteins and helping to sterilize anything that comes in from our environment down to the rest of our digestive tract. So chronic stress, trauma, lifestyle factors can weaken the vagus nerve, leading to poor digestion, immune dysfunction, and chronic illness. Have you ever been in a high stress state and then all of a sudden your gut just does not agree with you? Yeah, I can imagine everyone in this room has experienced that. So you often hear of, stress leading to, inflammatory bowel disease, autoimmune issues, is because the stress hormone cortisol, it breaks down muscle. It literally deteriorates muscle and it breaks down the lining of our gut, okay? So we're really going to get into this because you can tell I got a little bit excited on Canva with all my... Anyway, I'm not into graphics, but I thought it was nice. So the vagus nerve is that superhighway between the gut and the brain. Now, poor vagus nerve is linked to IBS, leaky gut, dysbiosis. Dysbiosis just means bacterial imbalance, small intestine bacteria overgrowth, SIBO, and inflammatory bowel disease. Now, researchers have shown that when they cut the vagus nerve, now this is done in animal studies, not human studies, when they cut the vagus nerve, the gut loses its ability to communicate effectively with the brain. So we know it's bidirectional. It's not just one way. So what that means is our gut microbiome, all the different bugs, everything that lives there, communicate with our brain as well, okay? So that's very important because if we have an imbalance of those bacteria, what can happen is it can send a signal to the brain and it can actually send inflammation. It's an inflammation of the nervous system, which can lead to symptoms like anxiety. Do you ever get spontaneous anxiety? There's nothing external that will trigger it. A lot of my clients who suffer with gut issues will say there's nothing triggering them and they just get spontaneous anxiety. That's a key trigger for me to understand what's going on with their vagus nerve, okay? Now, immunity, it regulates inflammation, anti-inflammatory, controls the spleen, the thymus, and it can lead to infections, autoimmunity, if it's not managed. In my opinion, the vagus nerve is really the secret that we're all missing. And it's so, so, so important to pay attention to it. Because if we neglect it and just want a quick fix, we're not getting to the root, okay? So these are signs of a poor vagus nerve. So the digestive issues, constipation or diarrhea, bloating, low stomach acid. So if you get, let's say you get acid reflux, okay? So you have something spicy, you have alcohol at the weekend, you get acid reflux. A lot of us can feel like that means we have too much acid, okay? Not necessarily. Alcohol is quite a stress on the system. Okay, our vagus nerve doesn't like it. Now, if you remember, I said the vagus nerve stimulates the stomach to produce acid. What can happen is when you get the acid reflux, it's because there wasn't enough acid in the stomach to start off with. So the food ferments, putrefies, and pushes acid up the esophagus. So you get that acid reflux symptom. But really, we need to come back to the root and was there enough acid there in the first place? So I have a lot of clients coming to me, been on antacids for years. We need acid. We need acid in our stomach because we need it to absorb nutrients. We need it to break down proteins. So, so, so important. So if you're constantly taking an antacid and not getting to the root cause, which could be you need to work on your vagus nerve, then you can lead to magnesium deficiencies, calcium, iron deficiencies, B vitamin deficiencies, all of that, which is important for energy, optimal health. So brain fog, anxiety, depression, fatigue, low stress resilience, irregular heart rate, blood pressure, difficulty swallowing, or loss of voice. So that hoarse voice, wheezy. Do you ever, or your friends or anything like that, notice that they've lost their voice or it goes on them quite easily? Loss of gag reflex. I'm going to get into that in a moment, okay? Because I want to practice it. No, I'm joking. So what I want to make very, very clear is if you're in a chronic stress state, you can't fully heal the biochemistry regardless of what protocols you're following or what supplements you're taking, okay? That's really important to understand if you're in a very high chronic stress state, okay? It's all about you need to calming, okay? That's very important. And then you start to bring in the protocols to help to build. So I've developed this health score. So if you want to see how quickly you're aging, you can do this quick quiz. You'll be signing up to my newsletter just to let you know. I promise I won't spam. I'm not a spammy person. If anything, you're probably lucky if you hear from me at all, really. No, I will get better, I promise. That's on my goals for this year. So, vagus nerve stimulation. These are really important techniques that can help to stimulate your vagus nerve. One thing that you're probably really going to understand after today is why yoga is so great. Because they really know how to activate the vagus nerve without saying it, okay? So there's some obvious ones here that help with calming that I'm sure a lot of people in the room know, like deep breathing. So slow diaphragmatic breathing activates the vagus nerve. Now, what's really important with that is it's not just shallow breaths, it's deep abdominal, hand on your belly, feeling it rise, and then release. Gargling stimulates the muscles connected to the vagus nerve. So that is one thing I do want you to try when you're brushing your teeth tonight, okay? It's just gargle, okay? Gargle the water, gargle the toothpaste. That's going to help activate the vagus nerve. Cold exposure, so splashing cold water on your face or the end of your shower, having, cold for a few seconds. A few seconds for me, you might be able to do it a little bit longer. Singing, chanting, humming, so it's the vibrations stimulate the vagus nerve. So at the beginning of a yoga class, the way they get you doing that really awkward and you see the real proper yogis go and you're just like, I'm just like, So what they're doing is they're really activating their vagus nerve because they're allowing the vibration to stimulate it. Laughter, positive social interaction, boosts the parasympathetic response, gratitude practicing. So that enhances neuroplasticity and relaxation. So what it does is it helps you unconsciously look out for the positive things when you're doing gratitude journaling. Okay, your next day you'll be more connected to the positive things that are happening more so than the negative. So it can help shift that mindset. Meditation, prayer, nature walks, sunlight exposure. Getting better. January is very grey, but we're seeing some more sunlight, thankfully. Then you've got the ones that come at a cost. Okay, so acupuncture. Has anyone tried acupuncture? Yeah? Oh, not that many. Craniosacral therapy. Then you've got the havening technique. Has anyone tried that? Yeah? Do you want to do a display? I'm only joking. So that can be a really great technique as well. Then you've got the electrical magnetic stimulation. Has anyone tried TENS machines? Yeah? My Sensate. Has anyone heard of that before? Oh, okay. So that really helps with stimulating the vagus nerve. The TENS machines, I kind of get my clients to clip them on their ear. I do that with kind of the more ones that are really stuck, okay? Essential oils, we've got them burning here, or not burning, what would you call them? Diffusing. You've got some lavender going, so that helps as well, helps with relaxation. So what I want you to commit to, if you can, okay? Remember now, the important thing here is if it's going to cause you more stress, don't do it because it's counterproductive. But maybe commit to like 5 or 6 activations per day for at least 4 weeks, okay? Choose a variety of different techniques that suit yourself. Schedule daily reminders, track progress. Now, we're all high achievers, really, okay? We all want to see if these things are working. Does people track their heart rate variability? Have any devices? No? Yeah? Okay. Have you ever noticed that your heart rate variability is just low and just can't come up? Yeah. So that can be a sign that your vagus nerve, you need to work on your vagus nerve. Because when the heart rate variability starts to increase, that's a good sign, okay, that you're in the parasympathetic. So I know, for example, I used to track. I don't anymore. But whenever I seem to go home to Ireland, I don't know thought it might be about Ireland. But when I went home, the first day I get in, my heart rate variability drops. And then it really rises. So maybe I'll put it down to the travel, not my family, they're lovely. Maybe it's the travel. So when my heart rate variability will drop, but then it'll come right up again. So there must be something about being at home, calming, I'll say that, and it helps with my heart rate variability. I know when I did yoga, when I didn't push myself too much to do, any kind of strenuous exercise. I know my husband is looking in the corner saying, you don't do strenuous exercise. I do sometimes. But I just know what keeps my parasympathetic nervous system stable. I know what works for me. Whereas my husband, he would train for triathlons. He would go do 5K a day for a month in January, which to me would just stress me out. But for him, that helps him. That helps us. He needs that. So find the thing that works for you and try commit to this. Look at some practices that you don't do. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to do some vagus nerve stimulation now. Okay? So the first one is kind of a bit on the gargling. So I'm not going to get you to gargle, but I am going to get you to try to still do the same thing that is trying to activate. Okay? Now I'm going to explain it first, and then we'll all do it on the count of 3. Okay? So you stick your tongue out as far as you can to almost reach your chin, and then look at your nose. Okay? I know it sounds a bit awkward. And then turn to the right, and then turn to the left. Okay? You ready? Right. 1, 2, 3. I'm only joking, guys. I'm only joking. Oh, you look so funny. Oh, sorry. First of all, I am so glad you laughed because I just activated your vagus nerve, okay? Laughter is the best thing that you can do to activate your vagus nerve, okay? So hang out with that friend that makes you laugh. Do the things that make you laugh. Okay, these obviously knew, because this is my husband up here, so he knew what was coming, and he might have told the rest. But yes, laughter is the best thing that's going to activate your vagus nerve, okay? But what we are going to do, now this isn't a joke, this is serious, we're going to do a breathing exercise. So when I did my yoga teacher training course in India, we learned this breathing method called Kapalbhati. Has anyone heard of it before? Yeah? Okay. So it's breathing in different sides of your nose, different nostrils. Okay. So you can all try this with me now. So what we're going to do is you're going to put your thumb either on your left, well, we'll do a left because I've got the mic on the right, on your left nostril. And then what we're going to do is we're going to breathe in for 4, 2, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then with your ring finger, hold 1, 2, 3, 4. And then out the left side. Okay? So we'll try that again. So you're going to cover your left nostril with your thumb. Breathe in. 3, 2, 1. Hold. 2, 1. And out. 3, 2, 1. Okay, we'll do that again. Do it one more time. I can really see the parasympathetic state that you're all going into right now. It's great. So we're going to cover our left nostril. Breathe in for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 3, 2, 1. And out. 3, 2, 1. Now, that's one technique. You can literally just do that 3, 4 times, okay, at once for a few seconds. Okay, that's going to activate the vagus nerve. The next one that we're going to do is we're going to try those ums, okay? But I really want a deep I don't want to okay? Now, the is, I want you to feel the vibration. If you don't feel the vibration, then we're not activating the vagus nerve, okay? So, are you ready? On the count of 3, 2, 1. Oh, guys, the vibration really works. I can feel it. Okay. Wow, that was powerful stuff. Well done. Okay, that deep vibration, that is activating your vagus nerve. Okay. Now, does many people meditate? Meditation, yeah. Okay. Some people find it very beneficial, and some people, they get more stressed and frustrated doing it. Then that's okay. It's not for you. So don't feel like that you have to push yourself into doing all of these techniques. Just find the things that work for you, okay? Now, I try to get out in nature as much as I can. I am that person that is fully remote because the majority of my clients are chronic fatigued. They can't travel, they're not going anywhere. So I've kept my practice fully remote. I really have to try to get out in nature. And when we're in London, if you're not by a park, if you're just living on busy streets, it can be hard to really get that microbe exposure because we're all living in sterile environments, really. Okay, we're all keeping our house clean. We're all living in sterile environments. So if you've got a pet, that can be really great for stimulating your microbiome, getting that exposure. Is there anyone else that's fully remote? Yeah? Okay, a lot of people. So even at the weekends, I will make sure that I purposely try to get out, get into the park if I haven't got enough during the week as well. So getting out in nature can be really calming and really helpful. So I've put all of this together on a handout for you. So if you want to scan this handout, you can basically get those techniques that I listed and then a schedule that can help you and just pick 4 things. Commit to 4 things a day. And what those 4 things could look like is, okay, I'm coming back to the gagging now. This is a clear sign when I know someone's vagus nerve it's poor functioning, is when they're brushing their teeth and if they put their toothbrush to the back of their tongue, they don't gag, okay? That's a sign of poor vagus nerve. So do the gargling, do the other techniques. So when you're all brushing your teeth tonight, you're all going to think of me now when you're putting your toothbrush to the back of the tongue and allow that gag reflex. Now, if you've got a fear of, for some people who have particular phobias, you might not want to do that one. You can do the gargling. But that is going to help. You're all dying to go home now and brush your teeth. I know you are. I can see it in your face. So you could do the gargling. You can do the toothbrush. So that's 2. And then if you do that again when you brush your teeth that night, that's already 4. Okay? So it's not an extra tasks that you're doing. Then let's say you got out in nature. Or let's say you did the Kapalbhati breathing. Or you just did deep abdominal breathing. All of that is going to be really important. And for people who are suffering with gut issues, it can really be life-changing, okay? Because poor vagal function, you're not going to get movement of the gut. Your gut's going to feel sluggish. You may get those irregular bowel movements like I mentioned, okay? Now, I know today wasn't much talking on foods and supplements. If anything, I probably turned you away from them. But it would be counterproductive if any practitioner turned around and was pushing supplements if you're in a chronic state, okay? You need to think of the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic nervous response because, like I said, it can be life-changing.